Cobble Cowboy here. Welcome in, y'all. Today we're going to be talking about a tier list for Season 4. Now, I've got it already pulled up in front of you, as you guys can see here, and we'll go through tier by tier from the bottom and talk about why I made these decisions. So, down here at the bottom, D tier, we have D for D-How. D-How is only good for the Sea People quest line, so if you're not doing that, don't worry about it. C tier right here, guys, we have the repeats. Now, these... what the repeats means is if you were to craft a build around one of these boats and you were to use it for this boat, like let's say the brig here, right? Let's go in the codex. We'll show you guys the brig. The brig's whole niche, this whole specialty is buoys, right? The brig, when you 6-6 this boat, you get 40% effectiveness on your buoys, assuming this passive is maxed out, and you get 10% increased auxiliary reload speed. Now, the problem with this, guys, is if you go with a damage build, if you go with the Infernal Maul, go ahead and show you guys this. Keep these two in mind. Okay, so we have the Infernal Maul for damage. We have Little Grace for repairs. If you go with the Infernal Maul for damage, the Sandbook is going to hit 50% harder on that, whereas this only hits 40% harder on the buoy. The Sandbook is going to hit 50% harder on the buoy because that buoy applies a blaze, right? Instantly applies a blaze. Instantly benefits from the 50% harder, so every buoy after that 50% harder. But that's not all, guys. This 40% is locked in to your buoys. This 50% is not locked into your buoys. This 50% has all of your damage done from all of your weapons, from all your procs, from whatever. So Sandbook, no need to ever run the brig, guys. And then again, if you guys go with the healing variant, right? The Bark does 60% more healing. The Cutter does 60% more healing. This only has 40, technically 45 and 65, but that's whatever. These two are going to outperform the brig every time. There's no reason you should ever use the brig for healing. So, like, what good is this, guys? This is why I've labeled this boat a repeat, because you could use it, but you'd be better off using it, that build, whatever build you're making, on a different boat. Now, same thing happens for the Hulk. If you look at the rest of this list, the brig right here is one of those. The Hulk, guys, it's cool. You can make a build around it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be better performed on the snow, because the only thing the Hulk has going for it is increased armor and increased brace size, right? But brace size doesn't matter for the snow because the brace on the snow recovers while blocking. And then Battle Junk, it's got its whole other thing. Don't even put it in the same category, I guess, because it's got insane group utility, it's got good brace, it's got passive damage mitigation when you max it out. It's a whole different thing. That's a whole S tier item. But that's what I mean, guys. And then same thing with the Bark. I'm not even going to talk about this one. The Bark, guys, just use the Cutter. The Bark is just a Cutter with AoE healing, but the Cutter is better for different reasons. We'll touch on that when we get to that. Now, in B tier, guys, this is the good but not too special. And what I mean by that is, like, let's take a look at this. So we have the Padwakong, the Sloop, and the Brig in this section. The passives are very similar here, guys, and I kind of mixed these up in my first ever tier list for Season 3. I'm not going to make that mistake again in Season 4. The Padwakong is good. I put this as like a C, maybe even a D in Season 3. This is easily a upper B. I mean, I had actually put this in A when I was making this list at first, because this passive is no joke. So let me explain how this works. Explosive hits have a 70% chance of triggering an explosion, which deals 1,000 damage within a blast radius of 125 meters. Now, I was like, all right, well, it's got a better chance than the Sloop, but it deals less damage and a smaller AoE. And the Sloop is a small type boat with 3 gun ports. It's got 3 top deck gun ports on the sides. Now, if you don't know, guys, small boats, when you upgrade them, they get either heavy arsenal. I'll show you guys because the perk doesn't show up in there. You get either heavy arsenal or big guns, is what it's called. And here we go right here. Increases damage and repair amount by 50% on broadside weapons. Now, note that, guys. And then if we come over here and we actually go into that boat, or we'll go into, yeah, here we go, into that boat. Now, how many broadsides do you see right there? That's one broadside, but how many guns are there? That's 1, 2, 3, right? Let's go look at the Padokong. Let's look at its broadsides. 3 gun ports, right? So that's a very key difference that I think gets glazed over a lot, guys. Is they have very similar passives, these two boats, but the sloop, I had in season 3 said the sloop was way better than the Padokong because of that whole gun port to 50% more damage ratio, and that's not exactly the case. Well, yes, the sloop shot for shot consistently hits for more. When you actually take into account this part of the Padokong's passive, if the target is ablazed, it will trigger an additional explosion at 100% chance per explosive hit. That to me makes the Padokong competitive again, because I didn't realize, and I don't know why they would do this. Why would they would give the sloop 3 gun ports? The sloop needs to have 2 top deck gun ports and 5 all deck gun ports, like the barge, like the cutter. The Badar and the Hulk only have 2 and 2 because their counterparts. Well, the Hulk has a counterpart of the Snow that has 3. The Brigantine, I guess, technically has 4 top decks, so I don't know why the Badar got screwed, but the Badar got screwed. But it makes no sense, guys, logically speaking, why the Padokong and the sloop have the same amount of gun ports, but the sloop gets more damage on theirs. Anyways, moving past that, moving on, so I don't acoustically fixate. Builds are my special interest, guys. Detonate. It can do 2,000 damage is what I'm getting at here. Right? Sloop can only do 1,500, and it's 50-50. This is guaranteed. So, like, let's say you use the Warhammer, right? This is 10 chances to proc that, because it's explosive, 10 rockets. You have 10 chances of proccing a 70% damage, or 70% chance 1,000 damage per shot, and a guaranteed, if the target's on fire, guaranteed a 1,000 damage per shot. So you're guaranteed, if the target's ablazed, to hit for 29,000 damage. Now, again, assuming you hit that 70% proc rate and you deal 7,000 additional damage, guys, you're doing what, like 36,000 damage with the one Warhammer click? Like, that's it. And then we got these new culverins down here, guys. This Naga's Call. This comes out in January or February. I can't remember. It's this season, but it's like way at the end of the season. These are explosive, and these will actually be really competitive on both of those builds that we just mentioned, the sloop and the Padokong. They'll be hitting shot for shot about the same, which is really, 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 really cool in my opinion. So anyways, guys, moving on to the Brigantine. That's the last boat we have in the B tier. It does increase ramming damage. When you upgrade this boat 6 out of 6, you're going to hit 7,000 damage when you ram a flooded target, and you hit 80% harder depending on how fast you're going, plus this 45 right here. But at the end of the day, guys, I would take the Badar all day for a ramming build. We'll talk about that when we get to the Badar. It's just better. But the real bread and butter, the Brigantine, guys, is the build diversity it offers with the 20% increased damage to flooding type weapons, as well as 20% more damage to flooded targets. But at the end of the day, guys, this is just like a lesser version of a sandbook that uses water bending instead of fire bending. It doesn't even get the 5,000 proc damage. It suffers from less consistent damage than the sandbook gets. It suffers from less consistent damage than the same consistent damage, but only if you use flooding type weapons that the barge gets. But it's just, this poor guy it's not good, guys. Don't use the Brigantine. The only thing I will say the Brigantine excels at is movement. When you upgrade this 3 out of 6, it's going to be 20 knots per second, or whatever per second. Imagine 20 knots per second. That would be insane. 20 knots as the speed. I don't know what the unit of measurement is in that regard, but now let's go ahead and move on to our A tier. Now this is excels at damage and or survivability. We have the Cutter. First off, guys, the Cutter is the best healing ship in the game. While it doesn't repair AoE like this thing does, this passively. So passively they both heal for 0.4 severe damage and 0.4 whole health per second, but the bark does it in an AoE, which is pretty nice. The cutter is just for you. The bark restores stamina and severe damage when you actively heal a player instead of that passive heal. The cutter passively heals 2% of the healing that you do, which is, don't get me started on how much healing that is, guys. That's insane. One broadside from the cutter heals about 30k health is what I meant to say there. So I'll go ahead and explain that math to you guys. The white jade right here, that's the tooltip port. When you actually, because it's a small boat, the cutter, when you actually throw this on the broadside, it has 5 gun ports. You're getting 5 times 3,000, which is putting you at 15k per broadside per heal. But you also have to factor in the 60% additional healing that this boat passively gets when you're healing somebody else. So that's actually going to buff that up to 30k per broadside. Now, there are additional factors that can scale your healing even further, and you can check out one of my healing builds if you want to do that. I've got a lot of builds coming out this week, guys. I've got them recorded. I'm just working on editing them, and then I'll get them out. But check out my cutter healing build if you're interested in healing like Vikram. It's a lot of fun. But this 2%, guys, I promise you, this 2%, it's better than everything the bark has to offer, and that's saying something. As well as when you upgrade this boat to 6 out of 6, when people use their own repair kits after you heal them, their repair kits are 30% more effective, which is pretty nice. So, moving on, guys. Next, we have the snow. The snow is just an immortal solo machine. I kind of mentioned it earlier when we talked about the Hulk. Its passive is it repairs itself. You regenerate brace while bracing. That's huge considering how big your brace is. Like, your brace will pretty much never break. It doesn't matter that the Hulk has the largest brace in the game. Your snow brace will almost never break because of how fast it regenerates, and the fact that you can just, the thing that's going to kill you on the snow is damage over time or bad stamina management. And at the end of the day, guys, the damage that snow does isn't even bad. It's, I would say, average to above average. It's got 3 top deck gun ports on the broadsides. It's got 7 all deck gun ports on the broadsides. But it's got a pretty cool passive. When you brace damage successfully, your weapon damage is increased by 20% for the next 20 seconds. So your damage is actually better than the Hulk would ever be, or some of these other boats like the Cutter, or stuff like that. But moving on, we have the Sandbook and the Barge. I'm kind of going to lump these two together, guys. So the Barge here, it builds a blaze really fast, and it gets 20% increased weapon damage. And then when you apply a blaze, it applies that effect to enemy ships in the radius of 125 meters. The Sandbook does the same thing, except for it procs 5,000 damage, and the radius is increased to 150, as well as any ship that is on fire is going to take 50% increased damage from you from all of your sources. So really, really nice, guys. When you upgrade the Sandbook, you get 25% increased reload speed on fire-type weapons. When you upgrade the Barge, you get Devouring, which is when you attack a target with any kind of weapon, any kind of damage that is on a blaze or on fire, you're going to break their sails almost immediately, which is super good for, like, crowd management. So if you're ever trying to do, like, one of these things right here, these convoys, these merchant convoys, my favorite boat to use here, guys, is the Barge when I farm these, because you break all their sails, they don't go anywhere any kind of quick, they group up, you use the right kind of weaponry. I'll show you guys what I rock on mine real quick, just really, 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 really fast. I use for my broadsides, because these hit 50% harder, or it's technically 70% harder, I use the Fall Ilse. They ricochet, doing more cleave damage, which means breaking sails I don't even mean to break accidentally, and they have 250% increased weak spot damage. Now, my front and back, I use Divine Thunder. Does increase weak spot damage, proc chance, to deal 3k extra when you hit a weak spot, as well as it's electric, so it applies Stormstruck. If you don't know, Stormstruck is an AoE damage over time effect. Very, very strong because we're going all about cleave damage with this build. And then for our auxiliary, we rock Infernal Maul to apply that ablaze that is also going to be an AoE and deal a lot of damage over time. So between those things that we just mentioned, guys, this build's an absolute monster. You factor in Blood and Gold from Buccaneer's Oath, and the damage just goes through the roof, guys. Insane AoE potential, insane AoE damage. It's nuts. Sandbook's got a plethora of different good builds. Look them up. I'm not going to tell you guys all of those right now. But moving on to the S tier, guys, this is what everybody's really here to see, the meat and potatoes of it all. The Badar, I think it's just easier because I have all these upgraded just to show you here. Oh, I didn't want to click on that. I didn't want to click on it. I just wanted to highlight it so I could hit V on it, please. All right. Jousting. That's your 6 of 6 perk. Lancer is what you get when you default the boat. So between these two guys, you get 175% increased ramming damage. That's why I take this over the Brigantine 9 times out of 10. Not only that, it guarantees to apply the flooded effect when you ram a target. That's going to decrease their movement speed, apply a damage over time, and apply severe damage all in one. On top of that, guys, when you ram that target, not only are you applying a flooded, which is doing all that, you're also decreasing the target's reload speed by 30% for 30 seconds. That is not a direct translation into 30% less damage, but over time, that's going to nerf their damage per second, also known as DPS. So you're reducing their damage output. When you 6 of 6 this boat, guys, you're also going to reduce the target's armor by 300 for 30 seconds. That is a bug or a typo. I don't know why that's there. It's 30 seconds. This is just going to increase the damage they take. It's going to tee up all your DPS to hit harder and harder and harder. So pretty nice. And then if you guys wanted to see the builds for this, guys, I use, this is not the build that I was trying to show you guys. Holy, I hate when that happens. This new tier season 4 like ship UI system is horrible. I hate it. It's taking me forever to adjust to. 1,000-year monsoon, because our target's always flooded, so we're getting the most out of this. Bombard, I put that on my bow and my stern. We're using Coronade for our broadsides because our target's always flooded, and these deal, well, you can't see because we're not using the right boat, but these deal 3,000 damage when they're equipped to the Badar broadsides, and you deal 50% of that as severe damage when you hit the target. So very, very good gun. And then Infernal Maul for the ablaze, so we're helping out any sandbooks that are at the event. We're also just doing passive, a lot of damage over time. I take the Peshasha, however you say that, armor, because when we hit that 25k ram or 30k ram, we're going to heal ourselves for 25 or 30k damage. This is absolutely nuts. I am surprised they put this in the game without toning this down a little bit. And I guess it's because for most boats, because nobody really uses this boat, most boats it's pretty balanced, but for this boat it's incredibly strong. And we take munitions mixer, so that our blaze and our flooded last longer. It's just a quality of life. We could get 100% uptime without those, so if you wanted to go like signal gong for more damage, you could, but I like it just for quality of life. I won't get into all the other furniture we rock, but those are the major talking points, the notable things. And then we also, again, just to reinforce that, guys, we have Heavy Arsenal, which is 50% more damage on broadsides. Next boat, Battle Drunk. I don't have this one upgraded. I would like to. I'm going to upgrade it this season. I ran out of upgrade parts last season, and now I'm out of pieces of 8 now that the season's rolled over. So that's what's locking me up on this one. But this is a great ship to upgrade, guys. Without upgrades, you don't even need to upgrade it, honestly, but when you do, basically you get 20% damage mitigation after blocking attacks or bracing attacks. But this is the real bread and butter of it, guys. Damage dealt within 200 meters, applies Taunted. Taunted is good because it decreases your target's damage output by about 15%. It also forces the target in PvE to attack you, which frees up your DPS to actually like aim for weak spots instead of just popping off shots between braces. When you apply Taunted with the Battle Junk specifically, this ship it increases the enemy's weak point damage from all sources by 50%, which is really nice. Group utility. That's one of the major parts that put this boat into S tier, because this is a debuff that's going to help out that new boat a lot. And then again, like, just think of the trifecta, right? The gaming trifecta. You have a triangle, right? At the top, you have damage. At the bottom, you have, in one corner, survivability, and at the other corner, you have utility, right? The trifecta. Usually you get to pick a side, right? So you can pick damage, survivability, you can pick damage, utility, or you can pick survivability and utility. But this battle junk, it's got it all, guys. It's got 4 gun ports, it does increased damage, it has group utility, it's tanky, like it does it all. So easy S tier for this boat, guys. And then lastly, we have the new boat. I do have this one maxed out. I know this is probably what everybody's here for. Go ahead and show you guys ship list. Here's the perks. So, Deadeye. Weapon damage is increased on how far you are from the target, capped at 80%. Piercing weapons deal 20% more damage. When your whole health is 40% lower, it increases armor by 1,000, and trimming costs no stamina for 10 seconds. This has a 40-second cooldown. So we're clear, guys, the cooldown's only on the when your health's under 40, not this top part. But this top part is absolutely mental, guys. Pretty self-explanatory. You want to be using piercing type weapons on this boat, guys. Piercing just got that really big overhaul as well, so you basically have 5,000 free damage from just using a piercing weapon. You decrease the target's armor by 500 for using a piercing weapon, and you hit 20% harder for using a piercing weapon, regardless of the range. Now, if you are at a decent range from your target, you're going to be hitting up to 80% harder. Now, that's not really, this is good. This is like A tier material. This would be sitting by the sandbook if it was just this. But Revolver is what breaks this. Revolver is absolutely nuts, guys. So, increases weapon damage by 30% when hitting a target that is punctured. Punctured applies in like 2 to 3 shots, guys. It's so quick. Their armor is decreased by 500 after they're punctured, and then you hit them for 30% harder. This is an insane amount of damage. Not only that, this is where things get real wicked, guys. Long guns are no longer top deck only weapons when equipped in the bow. Now, they do suffer from this 10% less damage, 20% longer reload times, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what this looks like. Not sure I really want to engage a target over this, but there we go. I hate that I can't see what I'm doing. I think I'm leading it a little too much, but the important part is not the misses that I'm doing, guys, but I'm hoping that you're seeing even with that damage nerf that this suffers, we're able to get 4 broadside shots out, 6 bow, 4, 6, 4, so even with the nerf to reload time, guys, and the nerf to damage, it's still it's still an insane boat. But that's all I got for you guys. Here's the list again if anybody really wants to see it in detail. GG's, like, subscribe, follow. It helps me out tremendously. I'm doing a giveaway right now at 250 subscribers. I'm going to be giving away my entire stash. that's all I got for you guys. Hope everybody has a good day.